I still hear the words, even now. That sentence. It plays in my head like a broken record. I had just finished taking a sip of my iced tea. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Everything was normal. And then she said it. I asked her, very casually, "So, Clara, darling, have you set a date yet? You know, for the big day. Liam and I are ready to start sending out the save the dates." She looked at me, not with any kind of excitement or nervousness. It was the look you give someone when you're telling them the dog chewed up the sofa. A simple, flat, "I have something to tell you" look. And she said, just like that, simple, calm, and quiet, "Oh, we got married yesterday." The tea almost came back up. I didn't choke exactly. I just froze. I think my mouth might have dropped open so wide a fly could have flown in and out. For a second, I thought she was joking, my little joke-playing Clara, but her face didn't move. She was serious, deadly serious. "Excuse me?" I finally managed to whisper. It didn't sound like my voice. It sounded small and far away. "We got married," she repeated, "in the courthouse, yesterday. Sorry, I thought Liam had told you. Sorry, she thought my son, Liam, had told me. Liam, the boy I raised to be honest, to respect his family, to talk to his mother about the biggest things in his life. Liam knew I had been dreaming of this wedding since he was 6 years old and dressed up in my old clothes. This wasn't just about a party. This was about trust. This was about family. This was about something much, much darker that was happening behind the scenes. And believe me, the why of this story is going to shock you way more than the what. Stick with me, because I'm going to tell you exactly what they were hiding in the lead-up to the secret ceremony, the real reason they rushed to the courthouse and kept it a secret from everyone, and the unbelievably horrible thing my husband and I had to do next to protect our son's future. We're not talking about a casual elopement here. We are talking about a strategic betrayal of the family. I should have known something was wrong, but when you love your son, you always assume the best. You always try to give them the benefit of the doubt. But looking back now, the red flags were flapping in the wind like warning banners. 1. The wedding talk shut down. For months, every time I mentioned the wedding, Clara would shut me down. Not rudely, but with a careful, calculated avoidance that I mistook for being busy. I remember this one Sunday, I pulled out the wedding binder. Yes, I had a binder. It was full of dream locations, cake samples, and a guest list for 300 people. I had been planning a beautiful, traditional wedding that would have made the New York Times social column. I said to Clara, "Look at this venue, the Stone Manor. We could have the ceremony by the lake. It's magical. I've put a deposit down so we can hold the date for next fall." She didn't even look at the photo. She was staring at her phone. She just mumbled, "Oh, Mom, don't worry about that stuff. We're in no rush." Now, here's the thing. When a young woman is engaged to the man she loves, the last thing she is in no rush. She wants to talk flowers, dresses, and colors. The fact that she had zero interest in any of it, that wasn't just a sign she was a chill bride. It was a sign she had a different plan. I realize now that she had to keep me focused on next fall so I wouldn't pay attention to what was happening right now. She was throwing me off the scent. And the thing I completely missed was that she had already told me the whole truth, just disguised as a lie. You see, the paperwork she was signing on her phone when I showed her the venue, it wasn't work. It was an application for a fast-track marriage license. I found that out much later. 2. The mysterious bank transfers. This is where the financial element comes in. My husband and I set up a trust fund for Liam. It's a considerable amount of money, meant to be his and Clara's start in life. The rule was simple, and Liam knew it. The money could only be accessed by Liam if he was married. The trust document was very specific. It didn't say when he had to be married or how, just that he had to be legally wed. Liam called me a few weeks ago, acting weird about his bank accounts. He was asking strange, technical questions about the trust documentation. He even asked, "Mom, what's the exact deadline for the annual review of the trust?" I gave him the date, October 20th. He mumbled, "Okay, cool, just checking some stuff." I remember shaking off the feeling. He's an adult. He handles his own finances. But the truth is, the annual review date was coming up, and if the trust wasn't active and generating income for them by the 20th, they would miss out on a massive payout for the year. This money was meant to be their down payment on a house, their security. It had been sitting there, waiting for them to start their married life. When Clara told me she got married yesterday, I immediately looked at the calendar. Yesterday's date? October 19th. They weren't planning a wedding for love. They were planning a legal contract for money. The reason they rushed to the courthouse and skipped the $100,000 ceremony was not because they wanted to be simple. It was because they were racing a ticking financial clock, and they needed to be legally married before midnight on the 19th to trigger the trust fund payout on the 20th. This wasn't a romance. It was a paperwork transaction. 3. The ring lie. The last straw before the big reveal was the ring. Clara's engagement ring is a family heirloom. It belonged to my grandmother. A beautiful, large diamond. I gave it to Liam to give to her. I asked her about it 2 weeks before the yesterday wedding. "Clara, have you had the band resized yet? It looks a little loose on you." She got defensive, which was completely unlike her. She quickly pulled her hand away. "Oh, no, I haven't. I've been meaning to. I just keep forgetting." I said, "Well, don't forget. If you lose it, it's irreplaceable." What she didn't tell me is that the ring was not simply loose. She had actually taken it to the jeweler, not to resize the engagement ring, but to buy a matching, plain wedding band to go along with it. She bought the band in secret, paid cash, and told the jeweler that it was a surprise gift for her sister. I know this because my other daughter-in-law, my son Marcus's wife, who works at that jeweler, heard the whole conversation and later told me everything. Clara lied about a loose ring because she had already purchased her wedding band. The truth was sitting right there, shining on her finger weeks before the shock. I just didn't see the tiny piece of gold next to the big diamond. It was her way of saying, "I'm ready," while telling me, "We're in no rush." It was all a calculated deception. Now, let's get back to that Tuesday afternoon. The iced tea is sweating on the table. My heart is beating so fast I can feel it in my ears. "Clara," I said, leaning forward, "you need to look at me and tell me the whole story. You got married yesterday without your father-in-law and me, without your own family, without a dress, a cake, and a single person in a suit?" She finally met my eyes. She didn't look sorry. She looked defiant. "Yes, Mom, we did. We had a small ceremony, just the two of us, and 2 witnesses. We didn't want the fuss. We didn't want the spectacle. It was just about us." "It was about the money, wasn't it?" I shot back. She flinched. That flinch? That's how I knew I was right. That's the one moment she couldn't hide the truth. "It helped," she mumbled. I took a deep breath. My face was hot with anger, but I knew I had to stay calm. I had to find out the details of this yesterday wedding, because if I couldn't undo the legal part, I could certainly undo the rest of their plan. I pressed her for the details. Where, who, how. The full secrets revealed. The story they told was a lie of omission. It wasn't about being simple. It was about being secretive and strategic. Here are the three main secrets they hid from the family. Secret 1, the witnesses I despised. The who. Who were your two witnesses? I asked. Someone from your family? Liam's brother, perhaps? She bit her lip. No, they were friends.
Which friends, Clara? My voice was rising now. I didn't yell. I used the quiet, dangerous tone that makes my husband nervous. She finally broke. It was Brenda and Mark from the yoga studio. Brenda and Mark. These are two people Liam and I had a massive falling out with years ago over a property dispute. They had tried to sue us. They actively spread rumors about my husband's business. They are people who actively hate our family, and they were the two people Liam and Clara chose to stand as witnesses to their sacred union. That's when I understood. This wasn't just a rush job for money. This was an attempt to publicly cut off the family without the drama of a huge confrontation. The secret ceremony was their way of saying, we are done with your rules, your money, and your expectations. They used people who were actively hostile to us to solidify their new independent life. I feel sick. Secret 2. The unbelievable venue. The where. Where did you have this ceremony? I asked, already dreading the answer. The courthouse, you said. Which one? The registry office, she corrected. But the actual ceremony, we had a little moment outside, in the garden behind the office. A garden? Yes, it was small. We did a little toast and exchanged the rings in the back alley garden of the city's oldest, smallest registry office. This registry office? It's known for quick, no-frills marriages. It's across town from our family home, the kind of place you go when you don't want anyone to find you. The contrast was staggering. I had paid a retainer for a 4-star venue overlooking the ocean, and they were exchanging vows next to a dumpster in a small, city-owned alley. It was a deliberate act of disrespect. They were spitting on every tradition I had worked to uphold for our family. They took the simplest, cheapest, most hidden route possible to get to the money, and they did it with people who were our enemies. The whole thing was a calculated insult. Secret 3, the secret honeymoon account. The how they used the money. So, what happens now? I asked, looking for the last piece of the puzzle. Are you going to use the trust money for the house? Or did you already spend it? She didn't answer right away. She looked down at her plain wedding band. The money is safe, she finally said. Liam and I opened a joint account. We transferred the initial trust amount. That's good, I said, relieved that at least the money was secure. But we also bought a trip, she added, almost as an afterthought. A trip? Where? We booked a month-long backpacking trip across Asia. The initial trust payout, the one that was triggered on the 20th, we spent it all on the trip. We leave tomorrow morning. There it was, the final, shocking truth. They had not only kept the wedding a secret to secure the funds, but they had immediately taken the entire first year's income from the trust, which was meant for a down payment, and spent it on a month-long trip for themselves. They had planned to tell me about the wedding, take my congratulations, and then wave goodbye as they flew off on their family-funded secret honeymoon, leaving my husband and I to figure out what had happened to the rest of the trust and the future they were supposed to be building. This wasn't just getting married yesterday. This was a calculated financial and emotional double cross. They planned to be gone before anyone could ask questions. My anger left. A cold resolve took its place. I stood up. "You are not leaving tomorrow, Clara," I stated, my voice completely level. "You can't stop us. We're adults. We're married." "You're right," I said. "You are married. But this family's money, this legacy, and your son's future are still tied to rules you don't understand." I walked over to the phone and called my husband David. "David," I said, "they got married yesterday. We need to call Mr. Henderson now." Mr. Henderson is our family lawyer. David was on a flight back home within 2 hours. We spent the night with Mr. Henderson, poring over the trust documents. We were looking for a loophole, something to stop the hemorrhaging of the family security. Mr. Henderson found it. It was a very old, very obscure clause in the original trust documentation from 1954, a clause my husband's grandfather had put in because he was, frankly, a bit of a paranoid man. The clause read, "The distribution of funds to the beneficiary shall commence upon the legal solemnization of marriage, provided the marriage is duly registered with the town clerk and the full details of the ceremony are officially submitted to the trustee within 5 business days of the solemnization." This meant 2 things. The marriage was valid. The trust was triggered. The money they spent on the trip was technically gone. But the continuation of the funds, the future, much larger annual payouts, was conditional on them submitting the paperwork properly. Liam and Clara had rushed to get married, but they were so focused on the October 20th deadline that they hadn't paid any attention to the detailed 50-year-old administrative requirements. They had the legal marriage certificate, but they hadn't submitted the full ceremony details, including the witness names, which was a separate page, to the specific elderly town clerk within the 5 days. They were flying out on day 3. They had missed the detail. The grand confrontation. Liam came home that night. He didn't look excited. He looked guilty. He tried to hug me. I pushed him away. "You got married yesterday?" I asked my son. "Mom, I'm sorry. We just wanted it simple. I know you wanted the big thing, but..." "You used Brenda and Mark as witnesses? And you spent your future on a backpacking trip? You did all this so you could steal a yearly payout and run before we could stop you." He finally looked like the little boy who broke a lamp. His defiance crumbled. My husband stepped forward. "Liam, we love you, but you married her for the wrong reason at the wrong time and with the wrong people, and you failed to file the necessary paperwork to keep the trust active." We showed him the document. Liam's eyes went wide. He read the clause over and over. Clara was panicking behind him. "You can't do this," Clara cried. "We're legally married. The trust is ours." "You had 5 days," my husband said quietly. "Today is day 3. You have 2 days left, but to meet the clause, you have to submit the full ceremony details to the clerk." Liam looked at us, his face a mix of shame and fear. "So, we have to tell you everything?" he asked. "Not just us," I said, crossing my arms. "You have to tell the entire immediate family." I looked at my son, then at his new wife. They had 2 choices to save their financial future. They could lose the remaining trust fund, the house money, the security, and take their month-long trip. Or They could confess everything, the rush, the money motive, the hostile witnesses, to the entire immediate family at a surprise dinner tomorrow night, and then submit the paperwork to the town clerk, thus keeping the trust active. It was a test of whether their secret marriage was about their future together or just a quick cash grab. Liam chose his future. He chose to save the family money. The backpack trip was canceled. Brenda and Mark were furious. And the family dinner that night? It was the most awkward, dramatic, and horrible confession I have ever witnessed. But they did it. They told the truth. It was a terrible situation, but here's the thing. This story is only the beginning. The money is safe, but the marriage is deeply broken. My son and Clara are now legally bound, but their relationship is hanging by a thread, and my husband and I are in the middle of it all. What happened after the family confession was even worse. The things Clara started doing to sabotage my son's career because of the canceled trip, you won't believe it.
If you think this was intense, you need to hear about the legal separation and the fight over the family diamond that happened 6 months later. Click on the video that's coming up on your screen right now, where I tell the story of the fake honeymoon and the stolen diamond. Thank you for watching this story through to the very end. The truth is always stranger than fiction.